Hey guys, it's Quickie Baby and welcome back to another Quick Tank review. This time we're looking at the M24 Chaffee. This is the Tier 5 American light tank, and it is really the only true remaining Tier 5 light tank in the game. We'll get onto that more later, but all you need to know is that the Chaffee is probably one of the vehicles that could earn you the highest experience achievable on your World of Tanks account. But that's not the main highlight of the Chaffee. It is an absolute little joy of a tank to play, and hopefully I'm going to show you why in this review. I've got multiple gameplays coming up for you, where the experience is over 3,000 with a premium account. So let's start by highlighting that the Chaffee is an absolute little bastard to try and unlock. You have to get 55,820 experience playing in an M5 Stuart. So whenever you see a poor Stuart on the battlefield, just understand, he's just trying to get the Chaffee. But when you finally get the Chaffee, it is not too expensive to buy the modules for it. Costing about 25,000 experience to get this fully equipped, and boy is that going to go fast because the Chaffee earns a metric crap ton of experience. And that's because the Chaffee has very unique matchmaking. The Chaffee comes from a time where the VK2801 was a Tier 5 German light tank. The absolute disaster that is the MT25 used to be a T52 and used to be at Tier 5, and there never used to be sort of this semi-Tier 5 light tank, the ELC AMX, let alone the British Tier 5 light tank, which really is just, for all intents and purposes, a medium tank. The Chaffee also predates the Type 64, which I have done a full tank review on, and is very similar to the kind of gameplay that you're going to get in the Chaffee. However, you can only get the Type 64 by spending real money or gold, and if you want to have the performance of the Type 64 without investing in it, the Chaffee is actually probably a better tank at Tier 5. So while tanks such as the T25-2 were moved up a tier and also crippled with its replacement in the MT25, and the VK2801 until this patch has been crippled since it was moved up to Tier 6. The Chaffee has hidden itself away from the praying eyes of wargaming, saying don't mind me, leaving it as a link to the past when the Tier 5 light tanks really were absolutely amazing in capable hands. Now, Wargaming do have plans for the Chaffee in the future, and as far as I'm aware, a new line of American light tanks. Although, don't quote me on that, I could be completely wrong. Nevertheless, get it while it's hot. You owe it to yourself to get a Chaffee before they do anything else to it. It's got 580 hit points, which means that it can take a shot from anything apart from high caliber Tier 9 and 10 tank guns. And it weighs 20 tons exactly with this loadout. Now, considering the horsepower of the top engine is 500, this gives it a fantastic horsepower to ton ratio, which allows it to shift around the battlefield. Now, for a light tank, one of the downsides of the Chaffee is that its top speed limit is restricted to 56 kilometers an hour. This means that traveling very long distances can indeed be rather tricky. But with 46 degrees a second traverse speed, you still have the true maneuverability of a light tank. Now, the armor on this tank is truly negligible. 25 at the front, 25 at the side, and 19 at the rear on the hull, with 38 at the front, 25 at the side, and 25 at the rear of the turret. Let's have a very quick look in Tank Viewer to see if there are any strengths and weaknesses of this design. So of note with regards to the hull armor is this large area here, which is only 20 millimeters, compared to the 25 surrounding the rest of the hull. The side and the rear armor on this tank are flat, and the rear half is much weaker than the front half. The tank has got some interesting spaced armor on it. The gun shield is 38 millimeters thick, with a layer of 25 millimeters visible on the side. And you've got to hope that the angling manages to overmatch the enemy's rounds and you can pull off a miracle bounce. We can also see that the tank has got some funky ears here, which are 25 millimeters of spaced armor. So don't try and shoot these from a funny angle, otherwise you won't actually end up damaging the vehicle. Really, the Chaffee is a true light tank, and your only method of avoiding fire from the enemy is using your maneuverability. So now we get down to the fun part of the Chaffee, and that is this 76mm, which fires just over 18 rounds a minute, with 137mm of penetration with your standard rounds, going up to 185 if you choose to fire APCR with the tank. And interestingly, 115 average damage with your regular rounds, falling to 110 with your premium rounds. Now, the accuracy is a very disappointing 0.39, but the aim time is a beautiful 1.7, which is why I suggest that although you don't use vertical stabilizers on this tank. Now I suggest this for a few reasons. If you're ever engaging enemies at long range, then even without the vertical stabilizers, if you're stationary, you can fully aim between your shots. I also feel that the Chaffee doesn't have enough ammunition to be able to take very risky, chancy shots on the move. Nevertheless, there is definitely an argument to drop out the ventilation to use the vertical stabilizers, but you will lose the well-rounded nature of the Chaffee just to gain a little bit of more flexibility with regards to how quickly you can aim it. The same goes for the coated optics and the binoculars. I prefer the coated optics, which will give you 486 meters view range, which will allow you to spot most tanks up until the maximum view range, which is 445 in the game. Of course, with binoculars, you'll be able to spot light tanks and medium tanks at much longer ranges while you're stationary, but it's a trade-off, and I feel that the Chaffee is more suited to optics. So let's take a look to see how this tank performs in some gameplay. So here we go, we're playing in our first game in the Chaffee, and many people will look at this team list and go, oh god, I am the only tier 5 tank in this game, and the lowest tier tank on the enemy team is a tier 8 light tank with an autoloader that can kill me in 3 hits, so he only has to hit half of his clip. Really, in this kind of a matchup, when we think about it, this tank can one-shot me, this tank can one-shot me quite a lot of the time, this tank can one-shot me quite a lot of the time, this tank has to hit me twice, this thing can kill me with only hitting 2 shells out of his clip, this thing can kill me with only hitting 1 of his 6 shells. Oh god, that's brutal to think. This thing can kill me. You're starting to get the pattern, which means that you're going to have a careful approach to the Chaffee. But there's a fine line between playing carefully and also not doing as much for your team as you could. So, I do have 6th sense on this tank. I managed to get the early spot on that IS-8. I'm hoping that our 2 tier 10 artillery will make the most of it. Now, an experienced Chaffee driver will not see a tier 10 game as a problem. They'll see it as an opportunity. And after you've played a lot of games in the Chaffee, I think you'll get what I'm talking about. So we spotted that E3 there, and he just took a shell for 940 from our artillery. That's a really good, successful start. And oh, great! Our Waffenträger Alfie 100 just managed to drown himself. Well played to that guy. I think Derpenberg has just struck again. Yep, there he is, right in the middle of the sink. But let's just think about that shot on that E3. In the first 2 minutes of the game, we've already done, well, we've enabled our artillery to drop a very impressive tier 10 tank down to half health. So I've immediately loaded APCR with my 2nd shell there, because otherwise there was basically no chance that we were going to be able to go through the IS. What I was really trying to do there with the first shot was try to damage his tracks, or be able to, well, maybe his tracks had already been damaged and we'll manage to track him up in a really good position for our team. I run a risk in that position. I feel like there's very little that I can do. As you can see, there's a 50-120 flanking behind, as well as 2 vehicles pushing up, and we've got the west covered as well. I looked for an opportunity on this map during this game, and I believed that providing view range from the center would be the best option for the Chaffee. You've always got to be thinking about that in the Chaffee. Where can I go? Where can I go to provide the most benefit to my team? And luckily for me, it seems like here was the right choice. We're looking for shots on that T-57 Heavy. We don't have them, so we hit the AMX 1390 once. We missed that shot. We managed to put 1 penetrating shot into him. And we hide there, kind of behind the 183. But I'm sure that he doesn't mind. I am a light tank, and he was definitely spotted as well with that devastating shot that he put into that tier 8 light tank. So, looking at the way that the map has developed, they have 2 tier 10 artillery, and that equals lots of experience for the Chaffee. and also good credit income. But they also have 2 Waffenträgers that are capable of one-shotting me. Still, looking at the distribution of tanks of the enemy team, it looks like they've left the middle of the map fairly open. And they're probably going to be camping, protecting that southern pass, with the T-54, the AMX 5100, trying to press over it. So I'm going to try and give as much spotting for my team as possible. We've still got 2 Tier 10 artillery. They can put in some very meaty shots, especially on these lightly armoured German tank destroyers. Waffenträgers are only good if they remain hidden. As soon as they get spotted, then hopefully your team can punish them quickly. So there's the Waffenträger auf Panzer IV. He's fired. Now I know I can shoot him multiple times. Put 2 into him. We bounce the 3rd shot, but now we see a more important target, an artillery. 2, 3, and check out the rate of fire on this 76mm. Absolutely beautiful. We got a little unlucky with our low rolls there. We should have been able to kill him with 4 shots, but we needed to put in an extra one for 3 damage, requiring 5 shots to kill that Tier 9 artillery. Now I'm looking for opportunities to go and engage the heavy tanks, but there's something else to do here, and this is very satisfying. A Tier 10 artillery, and he is just completely buggered right now. And those are the opportunities where you can get yourself a lot of action and also turn a close game in. And let's pause this for a second. If I hadn't been in that position there, it's very likely that that Waffenträger auf Panzer IV would have remained hidden, and he might have even been able to take out this T-54 before he pushes around the south part of the map. However, I lit him up, put pressure on him, forced him to fall back. He's definitely trying to kill me now. He doesn't like me very much after those 3 shots we put into him. We managed to kill the entirety of 2 Tier 10 enemy artillery, which prevents them from putting pressure up on these guys. If we hadn't killed those artilleries, it's likely the Waffenträger wouldn't be on half health, the artillery wouldn't be dead, and they would still be putting pressure up on our flank, and the score would probably be closer to maybe 8 for 10, or maybe even 7 for 10, because that T-54 might have died to the Waffenträger. So let's continue. We see that the Waffenträger is shooting us. He misses his shot. I go to try and shoot him, and we put another one into him. Say, oh, wow. Just because you're 4 tiers higher than me, you've still got to be afraid of me. And the Chaffee absolutely loves Waffenträgers. It really does. They're tanks which are very high tier, very lightly armoured, that this 76mm with its impressive DPM can just absolutely rip through. Here we have the back of an IS-7. I'm looking for the T-57 Heavy. We haven't been spotted yet until we fire. Now we're spotted. But luckily for us, we're able to put in 3 shots into the IS-7. We're looking for shots on the T-110E5 here as well, as the IS-7 has missed us. Now we load premium rounds because this is the only way for us to pen the side of this IS-7. He angles his armor towards us, the Tier 5 light tank. We have surrounded the enemy, and now their Tier 10 tanks are focusing on angling their armor towards the light tanks instead of the front. So I'm just trying to poach damage here. I'm trying to poach damage on that T-57 Heavy and the SD-1, but I see that there's an IS-7. We managed to put 1 shot into him. The second one bounces. The third one misses, and I decide to close the distance because the enemy IS-7 is fired. And keep in mind that I'm firing premium rounds here. This is not cheap to do in the Chaffee, especially if you donk premium rounds into the wall. But I do not want to get shot by this guy. The repair cost on the Chaffee is quite expensive. It's 10,000 credits. If he does shoot me, it's going to cost me about at least 8,000 credits to repair that 1 shot. However, we also want to remain aggressive to take him out. And we can control the pace of the combat. We see an opportunity, we make it in. We need to hit under his spaced armor to be able to take him out. Oh no, it's close! Yeah! 825 damage done to that tier 10 heavy tank. Now the IS-7 isn't the easiest vehicle to do damage to in the Chaffee. Its thick side armor, as well as front armor, means that you will have to fire APCR if you want to be competitive unless you can get the rear of the vehicle. However, there's a Waffenträger Alpha E100 now, and that's a completely different story. A gigantic fat turret that we can make fun of all day long. However, he can one-shot us 4 times out of 10, so I really don't want to get hit by him. There's a nice amount of damage there on him still, about 1700. Just under 1600 actually. And the problem with a Waffenträger is that just because he fires once, if I can get him to miss, he'll just keep on firing. So I've got to be very careful. So I'm using third person here to try and put pressure up on him and trying to use this wall to avoid damage. Now he's engaging someone else. I feel like it's my time to do some damage to him. And we finish him off. Hells yeah. What an absolutely fantastic result for this tier 5 American light tank. Hopefully this showed you that it doesn't matter what's on the enemy team. The Chaffee, if played well and with a bit of luck, is still very competitive. So let's just take a quick look at the post-game stats before we move on to some more gameplay. So we managed to pick up 6,266 experience for our double in that game. That is a 3,133 experience game with a premium account, or 2,089 base. Getting double of what would be an impressive game in a tier 9 or a tier 10 heavy tank. And an extra third over what would have undoubtedly been a mastery badge in a 5120. We can see that we indeed did spot that T110E3 at the beginning, getting 942 against him. And when we made that breach in the middle, we did 344 spotting damage on the Waffenträger Alpha Panzerfahr as well. Now the Chaffee, while I didn't finish top on damage, the fact that you're shooting tanks which are up to 5 tiers higher than you means that your experience multiplier is massive. Far more than the Type 64 would be, or the VK2801, or the MT25. And before you talk about the ELC AMX, that tank can't meet tier 10s. Now all this experience does come at a cost, and if we exclude the event experience from this game, we would have lost nearly 10,000 credits, excluding the cost for the cola that we used on the tank, which was another 10,000 credits. To get this result, we lost 20,000 credits even though we participated in the battle. However, it's not every day that you need to penetrate an IS-7 9 times to be able to kill him in a Chaffee. Now, don't get me wrong, if you were to drop the cola and not fire any premium rounds at all, we would have still had a very impressive game in here, and it would have probably still been a mastery badge. We just wouldn't have been that little bit as dominant. I personally don't play the Chaffee to make money. I play it for fun and because it's an absolute extreme tank, capable of achieving unparalleled experience multipliers. Anyway, let's move along and take a look at some more gameplay. Now let's look how the Chaffee performs when it gets a nice matchup. So we are only against tier 7 tanks. And that's brilliant for the Chaffee. It means that its gun is capable of taking out the enemies a lot quicker, and I can take more or less 3 shots from the enemy team. Well, at least the Tigers. The T29 is still going to 2-shot me, and the IS is going to 2-shot me as well. You just get a little bit more flexibility, and when the enemy's hit points are lower, well, a T29 is half of an E100 as an example, you can take them out more quickly than you could the tier 10s. And also, your standard rounds are more than sufficient at decimating the enemy vehicles, as we can see here. So we put in 4 shots into that Tiger P, doing 446 damage. Now we hit the Stuart. I'm just gonna feel sad, poor little Stuart. He just wants to be a Chaffee. Oh man, every time I see a Stuart driver now, I just feel sorry for them, guys. I just feel sorry for them. But alas, one day he will have the satisfaction of playing the Chaffee too. So the position I'm using is pretty cheeky. We saw that the Tiger P was there, so we're just going to continue to fire at him. And I love these new gun sounds. That last replay that we watched was in 9.0, and this one is in 9.1. That reloading sound and the turret ring turning does sound fantastic in World of Tanks. So, what I'm doing here is just locking down the positions. We're actually able to see all the way up to the yellow ring on our minimap, which would be our maximum view range. In the replays, XVM doesn't work entirely, and so it's not giving a good representation with the blue ring, which is a dynamic view range. So we managed to shoot the IS once before we got spotted there, and now we're just going to be punishing him. We can dodge him, and look at our aim time. Even without vertical stabilizers, our aim time is minuscule, which allows us to put pressure on the enemy heavy tank. Even at these long ranges, this 76mm is fantastic. So we're waiting. I'd rather shoot a Tiger than an IS, but if I can only shoot the IS, I'll take that. So I gave too much lead with that shot, and that was unlucky. And Shazam! We just lost half of our health from the ridgeline. Nice shot by the enemy. Luckily, the enemy artillery missed us. But you take your chances in the Chaffee. You take your chances. I want to keep my gun singing. And also, in my opinion, the enemies can't stay there. Luckily, we re-stealth. And unfortunately for us, we're unable to penetrate a lot of the shells that were firing there. So the AMX-12T has popped up, and I missed that shot as well, which was a bit awkward. Now I need to get out of here. I'm really worried about those tanks below me. The Tiger P, the IS, and the T-29 shooting me, so we've got to use our maneuverability to avoid as much fire as we can. So during that prolonged engagement, we got to see that the camera rating on the Chaffee is pretty good. But also we got to see that the penetration, when you use the standard rounds, is not enough to reliably penetrate Tier 7 heavy tanks, even if you have their side flush. Like, this IS is 90 degrees to us, and we've only done 200 damage to him so far. And that's the last of our regular rounds. Used up. Now, I do take quite a lot of premium rounds in the Chaffee. I take just enough to be able to kill an E100 from its full health, or an FB215B. But instead, we're going to have to use them now on these Tier 7 heavy tanks.
We didn't penetrate their armor.
So we're looking for shots. He's managed to stop just behind a rock, which is very frustrating for us.
We didn't even scratch.
Bounce.
Enemy armor is damaged.
A pen.
We didn't
Oh,
even
another
scratch
bounce.
them.
That was an awkward angle. And we've got to be careful here. We're running out of ammunition.
We didn't penetrate their armor. Penetration.
And there we hit the Tiger P. As well as I should mention that we really are dicing with death. But we're spotting that Tiger P and getting him killed for our team. The enemy artillery do miss us. And that'll come back to haunt him later. A nice little power slide around the corner there. And now this is the stage of the game which I love to play a Chaffee tank. Now, what I'm doing right now is, I know there's an IS there, and I know that his maximum view range will be about 300 meters on me even while I'm moving. I've got a camo crew in the Chaffee, which I do fully recommend that you get. So you're able to get around the battlefield with the most likelihood that you're going to be unseen as possible. Now, we know that there were two heavy tanks up here. There's one there and there's one there, meaning that there's no one guarding their base. Oh, well, fantastic. Let's go in and be a fox amongst the chickens, and hopefully take out these artillery that have been shooting at us the whole game. So where are they going to be? I like to take this position up here. Ah, he hasn't spotted us. Still hasn't spotted us. I pull back behind the tree, so he won't be able to see us even if we fire.
Enemy armor is damaged.
And we put two shots into him, and he has no idea. Well, he will have an idea of where we were because of where the shot indicator would have been, but his teammate won't have known. His teammate, the other artillery, will not have spotted us. And maybe if this M12 doesn't understand the indicator for where the shots come from, then he might not know as well. Oh wow, he was there? I thought he was going to run away east. But instead he came back and he was trying to hunt me. So unfortunately for us, now we're spotted. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make it look like we're going this way, and then I'm going to juke round to make him think that we're waiting on that corner, and hopefully not prepared for the fact that we're using the excellent maneuverability in the Chaffee to flank around him. Now, because he's not here, I know he's continuing to go forward, which means he won't have turned his tank, which means that we're able to execute him. Now, I'm still wondering where that M44 is. Why hasn't he come to back up his artillery friend? So I'm thinking the artillery must be up there. So I make my actions confusing. Well, as confusing as I can be for the enemy. I go forwards until I remain unspotted, and then I change my direction and enter from a different angle. More often than not, the enemy will think that you still go the way that they last saw you going before they couldn't see you anymore from the delay in the unspotting mechanics. And what that can allow you to do is to try and confuse your opponents. Luckily for me, this is just a fantastic opportunity. And this is the Chaffee. Look at the Chaffee here. One, and a fire. There's his premium fire extinguisher gone. And right now I was going, hope for fire, hope for fire, hope for fire, hope for fire, hope for fire. But check out this DPM. Even at long ranges, this Tiger has no idea where the shots are coming from. And it really sucks for him. 1,100 damage so far. 1,223. And 1,329 damage to that Tiger in that time. Now you might be asking, well, why aren't you shooting the IS? You've still got 3 shots left. Now I know that the M44 has got about 300 hit points. And I need 3 shells to be able to kill him. And boy, I'm the only one who's going to be able to find him with only 1 minute left on the game. And I don't want to leave an artillery alive. Even it means if I have to give up the kill on that IS. I need those 3 shells to be able to take out this M44. Now it just becomes a hunting parade. So we know that he's probably not up the west, although he could be. He might be up here, but I thought it was far more likely that he'd be up in the northeast. And so that's where we're going. We're going to see if our judgment is right. And oh, there's only 30 seconds left. I was wondering if I was going to be able to find this little scumbag. Go on, artillery. You've been shooting at me all game. What, you don't want me to shoot at you? Where is he? I'm thinking he's over in that corner. And I was wrong. He's there. But thankfully we have his ass. 1, 2, and Shazam! We kill the enemy with the last remaining shell in the game, giving us a Fadens medal. So hopefully this replay showed you just how devastating this little tank can be, even against tanks that are 2 tiers higher than it. So let's just take a very quick look at the post-game stats. So this one was even better. 4,656 experience for our double. That's 3,228 with the premium account and 2,152 base experience. We secured a Confederate medal for hitting a lot of tanks that we didn't kill, a very satisfying Fadens medal hunting down that artillery at the end of the game, and a high caliber medal as we did 4,000 damage. So we fired every round that we had there, 60 of which we hit 53 and 41 of those penetrated. The accuracy of the Chaffee is a little underwhelming at times, and so if you want to have engagements at medium to long ranges such as you saw here, you should be very prepared to not penetrate a lot of your shots. And that can come back to haunt you later on when a full health tier 7 heavy tank just completely gives you his flank and lets you just absolutely wreck him. Nevertheless, in addition to that 4,000 regular damage, we did 1,643 spotting and 283 upon detracking. It was a great result for this vehicle, and it's one of the highest experience games I've ever had, although not the highest, which is still in the hands of the VK2801 back when it used to be at tier 5. However, I really don't think I'll be achieving that again now that the tank is at tier 6. One thing I want to touch on is the fact that you've seen me do a bit of scouting, but more or less I've been showing you the fact that the Chaffee can dish out the damage when used carefully. Needless to say that the Chaffee is very capable of playing as a pure scout, but its top speed limit does prevent it from getting into some early aggressive positions, and also from quickly falling back when it's detected. Nevertheless, I'm just going to show you a quick bit of gameplay showing the Chaffee playing a pure scout role on the 9.0 Comorin map.
Let's get this show on the road.
So we're back into the realms of very dangerous tier 10 tanks on the enemy team. So it's time to do a little bit of scouting in the Chaffee. Now my initial idea is, shall I do Will It Drown? And then I believe I figure out that it's probably not going to be the best idea for me. And so I swing around and make my way instead into a bush position to be able to get the early spots on the enemy tanks. And so here we go. Gonna be sitting in this bush for a while. Now the Chaffee, with optics and a good skilled crew, will have 445 meters view range. I will be able to see most enemy vehicles right up until this white ring that you see surrounding me. Just going to speed it up a little bit here. So here's an M103. I will be just whizzing through this gameplay. So we're just looking for the enemy tanks. Now I'm looking up at the sky there because at the time I was streaming, and quite often when I'm doing passive bush scouting, the enemy tanks will be watching my stream, and if they see me not looking at the sky, they'll know exactly which bush that I'm in and start to blind fire it, which really sucks. But I'm basically just spotting this STB-1 and this Leopard, and he has no idea. He has absolutely no idea where I am. Will I fire? I will guarantee... I'm like 7 out of 10 chance to be able to kill that STB-1 if I was to fire there. But I decide that if I do fire, it's very likely that the Leopard, the 183, the M103, all of those tanks will engage me. So I'm just going to chill. I'm still doing some good work for my team. Looks like I'm consistently spotting the enemy vehicles from this position. Speed up the gameplay a little bit again. And it's all about holding your nerve, really, when you're doing these passive bush scouting moves. Now that I can see that we've successfully taken out the majority of that flank, I'm going to proceed to be a little bit more aggressive now. Now, I know that there was an M103 spotted just over to the left, but look at this view range. I just spotted a GW Tiger while on the move from there. One. M103 spots me, so I pull back. We put one into the side of the M103. We go for the track, and the T-57 has tracked him. Oh, sorry, a bit of a misplay there on the T-57 Heavy. Must apologize for that, sir. I was very worried, and I do actually say sorry to him in the chat. The GW Tiger gets spotted again, and the T-57 Heavy takes him out. Now it is time for the Chaffee to get funky, so to say. So I know there's a 183 over there. So I'm just going to make my way through the middle of the ridge, and I got spotted, so it's time to take some evasive maneuvers. Got to try and make your movements erratic as possible without slowing your tank down completely. Now we're just looking for this 183. There he is. And the perfect opportunity for the tank. I'll slow it down to real time so you can get an idea of the rate of fire of the Chaffee. And we took him out ruthlessly. From here on, really the game doesn't evolve into too much. I don't want to cap. I want to get some kills. So I actually do Will It Drown with the Chaffee to get into position. Manage to get the back of this VK4502B, which is exactly where you want to be in the Chaffee. And that, at the end of the game, is just experience. When you get the opportunity to achieve that kind of thing in the Chaffee, it's absolutely fantastic. So one thing I quickly want to touch on is the fact that it feels like, with all the map changes that happened in 8.9, 9.0, and 9.1, that quite a lot of the maps have been changed to be less linear, and a lot of the bushes have been removed from them. This is making it harder and harder to play a pure scouting role. And I felt that in the Chaffee during the 60 games or so that I've played in the tank. I remember when I used to play my Type 64 when it just came out before all of these map changes, and I basically had a position that I would go in on the majority of the maps where I would probably feel that I was guaranteed to do a few thousand spotting damage. And positions such as the one that I just used on Comarin are more or less now gone with the fact that the enemies can actually go that way. We see positions on Redshire nerfed as well. It's a lot more tricky to be a pure scout in this game, and that's why the Chaffee is so damn strong. It can do scouting, but it's not a pure scout. The 76mm on this tank makes it a damage dealer. And that's probably why it's my favourite light tank in the game at the moment. And so attributes such as these in the Chaffee have allowed me to get a rather respectable win ratio over my 65 games that I've played in it. Now, while that I've got 1,173 average experience in the Chaffee, which is nice, I'm far more proud of that 66% wins. Now, I realise that there might still be the issue of a small numbers problem, the idea that this is spread out only over 65 battles. And it might be still a series of fortunate games to have that 66%, but I still feel that I'm having a really good role for the team. And I only ever really play this tank solo. I don't play it in platoons. And it's very satisfying to think that even though you're always the littlest tank on the team, you can impact the game enough to win 2/3 of your battles. One thing I will highlight is that my average vehicle spotted per game is 4.25, which is very healthy. We're spotting between 1/4 and 1/3 of the enemy team on average every game, as well as doing on average 1,000 damage a game. I absolutely love this little tank and I can't recommend it enough. Nevertheless, it's not an easy tank to play, but if you're a player who's played a lot of World of Tanks and maybe you want something new, exciting and fairly extreme, then there's no better tank than the Chaffee. I personally love to be the underdog, and I love this vehicle just because that's what it gives you. And when the underdog wins, just like in real life, it's exciting and highly rewarded. Anyway guys, I hope you've either enjoyed this review or it's just been useful to you. If it has, please consider rating the video down below. I'd really appreciate it and it helps me out. And let me know what you think about the Chaffee in the comments. There's so much to talk about. Just let me know what you think. Anyway, as always, thank you all so much for watching. You've been epic and hopefully I'll see you soon.